43-year-old shooter Ian Hale carried the flag. He was nominated by the team manager, our great Olympic sprinter Marjorie Jackson.
So there she is, there's Marge.
Arthur Tunstall was marching too, seemingly subdued by the notoriety of the last 2 days. 253 Australians will be competing during the next 14 days. Our medal prospects have never been higher. In these games, there'll be a new competitor. The South Africans were welcomed back by the stadium crowd in a rousing ovation.
And listen to this. South Africa, they last competed in 1958, 36 years ago.
The Queen officially launched the games with these familiar words.
I hereby declare the 15th Commonwealth Games open.
More ceremony as two famous athletes delivered the flag. Roger Bannister and Australian John Landy became known as the Miracle Men, two runners who broke the 4-minute mile at the Vancouver Games of 1954. This was also a day for the Indigenous people of Vancouver Island, a spectacular demonstration of their arrival to this land. It was a day of festivities to celebrate the coming together of nations. But tomorrow marks the beginning of a more earnest encounter between countries as some of the world's best athletes set their sights on gold.
An around-the-clock pumping operation is underway to boost levels of Adelaide's shrinking reservoirs. We've experienced our driest winter runoff in 12 years, and water is now being pumped from the River Murray to stock up before summer.
Adelaide's reservoirs are a sorry sight. Most are only about 39% full, and it would take more than 100 millimetres of rain to bring them up to normal winter levels. But with winter almost over, authorities aren't prepared to wait on nature any longer. Today, the ENWS turned on the pumps and began sending treated water from the River Murray into streams feeding the metropolitan system. 300 megalitres a day is being pumped into the reservoir system in a bid to alleviate the water shortage. It's flowing into Mount Bold in the south and Little Parra in the north, and the ENWS department says if the season doesn't break soon, the costly pumping exercise may have to continue until March. The pumping could cost the state government an extra $5 million if it continues until the end of summer.
Very costly, because we're dropping water that's already been chlorinated and we have to lift it again and rechlorinate it, so yeah, quite costly.
But the ENWS says the cost won't be passed on to consumers and no water shortages are anticipated over summer. Meanwhile, the opposition says some Adelaide residents have been missing out on fluoride in their water for the past 2 weeks. It's claimed delivery of the chemical to the Barossa filtration plant was delayed until today because the ENWS Transport Division was outsourced to private contractors.
That means that every single household between Gawler and Parra Hills has had no fluoride in their water for 2 weeks.
But the government says the delivery was initially prevented by the ENWS union strike and then further delayed by mechanical problems with a delivery truck.
There's a push for syringe vending machines to be installed around Adelaide to help stem the rising tide of the HIV and hepatitis C viruses. The idea is supported by 2 health workers who've been surveying drug addicts in South Australia.
Despite small pockets of resistance, condom vending machines are now widely spread throughout the state. Under this proposal, similar machines dispensing syringes would be installed on a trial basis in 3 yet-to-be-decided locations around Adelaide. A spokesman for the Drug and Alcohol Services Council says it hopes to use the machines to reach drug addicts who aren't using existing needle exchange programs. Syringe vending machines have been operating successfully in New South Wales and Western Australia for at least 12 months. The plan is part of an overall strategy to stifle the growth of AIDS and hepatitis C in South Australia.
This is an epidemic of huge proportion among injecting drug users.
In the latest study, 87 members of the state's methadone program were tested for Hep C. All but 5 were found to be positive.
Among that group, it's huge, far, far bigger than HIV, for instance.
More than 900 clients of the Sexually Transmitted Diseases Clinic, who'd also injected drugs, were tested for Hep C. Of these, nearly 30% were infected. In both studies, only 2% were found to be HIV positive. As many as 200,000 Australians are estimated to have hepatitis C. With up to 10,000 new cases reported each year, the potential medical bill is enormous.
We've really got to sit around the table and decide on a definite course of action which will maximise the chance that we don't get any more new infections of this particular virus.
Health Minister Michael Armitage says he supports anything which decreases the spread of AIDS and hepatitis C in the community and eagerly awaits the results of the syringe vending machine trials.
The Australian Medical Association says state and federal governments are to blame for a national health crisis. A survey commissioned by the AMA shows 57,000 public hospital patients had elective surgery cancelled last year. And doctors say the problem won't be solved until governments provide enough funding for hospitals.
The AMA says the survey confirms a waiting list crisis in public hospitals. It found 57,000 public patients around the country had their operations cancelled in the past year. The main reasons: a lack of theatre staff, lack of beds, hospital cost cutting such as theatre closure, and patient cancellation.
Now, whilst some of those people will be waiting to have their tattoos removed, at least 1/3 of those people waiting have a degree of urgency to their problems.
New South Wales cancels the most operations, and while the survey shows Queensland runs the most efficient public hospital surgeries, it cancels more patients than Victoria and as many as the other states and territories combined. The AMA says operations are being postponed because public hospitals are underfunded and not because there's a lack of surgeons.
That's just plain and utter nonsense. Funding is not the direct influence over the cancellation of operations. Usually, operations are cancelled simply because a bigger emergency has occurred.
Federal Health Minister Carmen Lawrence called the survey a partisan one, but won't comment further until an independent health survey that she's commissioned is finished. But both governments and the AMA agree the increasing pressure on public hospitals could force Canberra to hand over more Medicare funding to the states, possibly several $100 million.
A fierce earthquake has rocked northwest Algeria. At least 150 people are known dead so far, and up to 10,000 are homeless. The quake, measuring 5.6 on the Richter scale, was centred near the town of Mascara. A higher death toll is feared as more victims are recovered from rubble and reports come in from outlying regions.
The Algerian earthquake hit during the early hours of the morning. Most, if not all, the victims were asleep. Falling masonry crushed them where they lay, others just suffocating. Thousands of people, many in a state of shock, have been left homeless. Many spent the night in the streets, fearful of aftershocks. The Algerian government has declared an immediate state of emergency and appealed for blood donors. Rescue and medical teams have toiled in the disaster zone, but the toll rose by the hour.
Here at the Algerian embassy in London, diplomats say the toll may rise even further. More victims, it's feared, lie beneath the rubble of remote villages. But at this stage, Algiers is still assessing the damage, both human and material, before requesting overseas aid.
Algeria has a history of earthquakes. It's where the terrestrial plates of Africa and Europe meet. The last major quake 14 years ago flattened the central town of El Asnam and 4,000 died. On a relative scale, this wasn't as bad. On the Richter scale, it was bad enough.
The United States has reacted swiftly to the flood of refugees from Cuba. From now, they'll be detained on arrival. Hoping to deter the mass exodus, the White House fears Fidel Castro will soon open the human floodgates.
In the past month, more than 2,000 Cuban refugees have arrived in Florida, half of them in the last week alone.
I feel very happy to be here because I wanted to be free. I'm here looking for freedom.
They cite the repression of Fidel Castro's communist dictatorship and the worsening hardship caused by a trade embargo imposed by the United States 30 years ago. Unlike Haitian refugees, Cubans are granted automatic political asylum and the chance of US citizenship. But now, with a possible exodus on the horizon, US officials are starting to panic.
In an effort to deter more Cubans from risking their lives, effective immediately, the Immigration and Naturalization Service will detain all individuals interdicted.
It's the biggest flood of refugees since 1980, when Fidel Castro exploited the US policy, allowing 125,000 Cubans to set sail. The Carter administration sent most of them to camps in Arkansas, causing an uproar that contributed to Bill Clinton's defeat as governor.
There's a lot of people who want out, and if they're given the chance to leave, they will leave.
A scenario the embattled US president wants to avoid at all costs.
Pressure is growing on the White House to rethink its stance on Cuba, possibly repealing the 30-year law granting its refugees instant asylum. Aware that at the moment it appears Fidel Castro is running that part of US immigration policy and not Bill Clinton.
With an estimated 500 Cubans leaving every day by any available means, the US is considering a naval blockade to counter what's fast becoming its latest foreign policy crisis.
The Prime Minister's department has admitted it hasn't been deducting tax from payments to casual employees at the lodge in Kirribilli House. In a statement released this afternoon, the department said $9,000 in wages had been paid through a petty cash system without official approval. Arrangements have been made with the tax office to clear up the problem. 2 weeks after Alexander Downer's unhappy visit, federal politics returned to Central Australia today. This time it was Aboriginal Affairs Minister Robert Tickner handing back land to the traditional owners. He turned over the title to nearly 23,000 square kilometres of the Simpson Desert.
It's been a long day coming, say the Aboriginal people gathered here, the return of a vast area of traditional land. While the bulk of the land included in today's handback is vacant Crown land, it also includes a Aperinga station, which has been successfully operated by Aboriginal people for the past 5 years.
We've been waiting since 1989 that they did the land claim. And it took us 3 years. And I'm real proud of it.
It's one of the few areas in Central Australia that's been returned to the Eastern Arunta people. The hope is that today's events will mean many of those dispossessed and dispersed, now living in Alice Springs town camps, will be able to return to their traditional country.
It's very important because it also gives people a real opportunity, not only for an economic base to build a future, but it's the return of traditional country.
Today's signing completes a significant week in the operation of the Northern Territory Land Rights Act. On Tuesday, 9 exploration leases were granted to mining companies under the Act by the Northern Land Council, proof, the Minister says, that the Act works. But others differ. Mining organisations and the Northern Territory Government would like it changed, but the Federal Aboriginal Affairs Minister warns while the politicking continues, the process of reconciliation is the loser.
The community doesn't want to see politicians using Aboriginal affairs as some kind of a party political football.
Mr Tickner says since the federal opposition leader has called for a total review of his party's Aboriginal policy, the ideal solution would be to achieve bipartisan support.
An angry Alan Bond clashed with the media after a court appearance in Perth today.
Will you go away, please?
Earlier this year, Bond had failed to have his committal hearings on fraud charges delayed on the grounds of brain damage and depression. The charges relate to the purchase of the Manet painting La Promenade. Today, the magistrate reluctantly granted his lawyers a 3-month delay to allow them to appeal against a Supreme Court ruling. A Melbourne man has been sentenced to 5 years jail for causing serious injury to a 7-month-old baby. The child, now 2 years old, was left legally blind and brain damaged after being violently shaken.
After a week in court, Sally Bailey left disappointed with the justice system.
I think the judge did what he could, but I think the sentencing laws are disgusting.
Yeah?
I want this man to have the sentence that my son's got.
How long would you like?
The rest of his life to be the way my son is.
Her 2-year-old son, Daniel Pritchard Bailey, is legally blind and severely brain damaged. 18 months ago, the boy was left in the care of 23-year-old David Joel Whitbread, then Ms Bailey's boyfriend of 3 months. Judge Morrow said apparently after the boy started to cry, Whitbread took Daniel by the ears and shook him severely. Doctors say the child is likely to have a seizure disorder and significant mental retardation. The judge told Whitbread, your reaction to the temporary interruption of your afternoon nap or the watching of a TV program was completely uncalled for and unnecessary. It is clear Daniel suffered horrific injuries at your hands, and these injuries will severely impair, if not ruin, his enjoyment of life.
The community at large must be aware of the fragility of children, and we may all be able to learn a lesson from that.
Whitbread has previous convictions for various offences, including armed robbery. The Victims of Crime Assistance League says given that record, Whitbread's 3-year, 4-month minimum sentence is nowhere near enough.
The rift between the federal government and the unions has widened. Some union leaders are saying privately that things will only get better when Industrial Relations Minister Laurie Brereton moves on. Mr Brereton confirmed earlier today that he was funding companies to develop non-union deals. More from industrial correspondent Bronwyn Young.
Laurie Brereton likes a fight, and he's got another one on his hands. Today, he handed out almost $4 million to help companies develop enterprise bargains, including a handful working on non-union deals.
I don't think it's at all unreasonable that these 6 very good applications should receive funding.
And that's confirmed the worst fears of many in the union movement.
And I'm concerned that non-union enterprise deals are going to be trotted around the country as an examples of how to get them up without union involvement.
Today's announcement comes as the largest non-union deal nears completion. Optus employees have voted overwhelmingly in favour of a deal put to them by their management, covering almost 2,500 employees. But the Communication Workers Union will fight it in the Commission. Mr Brereton's desperate for the Optus deal to go through. He wants it as proof that companies can do these sorts of agreements. But the unions are furious over the way he's promoting them. Some believe he's isolated himself from the unions and say privately that the rift won't heal until the minister moves to a new portfolio. And the government's latest submission to the Industrial Relations Commission on award restructuring has done nothing to ease the rift with some unions. They say it only confirms their fears the government plans to gut awards, hurting the industrially weak.
Well, now to finance and some movement today in interest rates, with Westpac lifting the return on term deposits by an average of 1%. But none of the major lenders has made any move yet to raise on home interest rates. The share market finished the week in uninspiring fashion, the All Ordinaries closing about 5 points down. Overseas, Japanese stocks took a knock as the yen strengthened against the greenback, while the Hang Seng dipped sharply ahead of an expected interest rate hike in Hong Kong. The Australian dollar managing to hold just above 74 cents against the greenback. While the Crows take a rest this weekend, the battle for a place in the local competition's top 5 is hotting up. With just 3 rounds left, Glenelg, West Adelaide and North Adelaide are all vying for a finals berth. And to add to the drama, Port Adelaide spearhead Scott Hodges is on the brink of scoring 100 goals for the season.
After a traumatic season with the Crows, Hodges' form this year has been first class.
Up to the full forward line and Hodges takes...
The reserved full forward has been a rock of strength for the Magpies, and tomorrow needs 8 goals for his ton. But he's far more concerned for the team than individual glory, and with Port Adelaide in brilliant form, Hodges is hoping the trend will continue tomorrow against North Adelaide.
It doesn't really bother me whether I'll get it this week or whether I'll get it in the weeks to come, but certainly all I'm looking forward to this week is just contributing and basically winning.
North Adelaide is sitting in 5th place on the league ladder, and coach Darryl Hart has every intention of staying there.
Everyone loves playing Port. It's going to be, the Crows have got a bye, so Football Park, if the weather's good, you could get over 10,000, which would be excellent, and they're where finals are played, so the boys are very, very keen. Obviously, we're a touch disappointed Brett and Phillips didn't come up, but if that's your only negative, there's certainly some positives, so we're very, very keen to play them at Football Park.
Sitting precariously just outside the 5 are Glenelg and West Adelaide. Both come together tomorrow at the Bay. A loss to either side and the season is all but over. While the scramble for the top 5 continues, the Eagles, who have a bye tomorrow, are sitting confidently on top of the ladder, looking every bit this year's premiership favourite.
The tragedy of thousands of Aboriginal children who were taken from their parents and sent to live in institutions is graphically displayed at an exhibition at Tandanya. With the help of the Australian Archives, Between Two Worlds tells the story of the impact that practice had on the children's lives and later generations.
In 1911, the South Australian government passed the Aboriginals Ordinance. It was an effort to protect and control Northern Territory Aborigines. Children with a non-Aboriginal parent were taken away from their communities and sent to live in institutions. The Australian Archive says it took 10 months to put together what it believes is one of Australia's great untold stories.
We wanted to make it a very powerful and moving exhibition about Aboriginal people. And so this topic really popped out from the pack as a very powerful story which would affect everyone that's come to see it because it's about children.
The exhibition highlights the stories of 6 of those children. Born in 1920, Hilda Muir was 8 years old when she was taken from her Aboriginal mother and sent to a home in Darwin. She was not reunited with her family until 1973. Today, her granddaughter, Francesca Cabillo-Alberts, explained that neither she nor her grandmother feel bitter, but would like people to understand what happened.
I would like to see non-Aboriginal people see this fairly traumatic thing, this traumatic exhibition, this traumatic awareness, as something that they can understand, and therefore, in that understanding, not point any fingers, not place any blame, not hold any grudges.
The exhibition is at the Tandanya Centre until the 3rd of October.
Well, it's time now to check the weather. And Jane, are we going to have any weekend rain?
Maybe some showers, but not too many of those. Today it was fine and sunny for most of the state. There were isolated showers reported on the southern coast and in the far west, with the top gauging being 1 millimetre at Cape Border. Well, it was a fine day here in Adelaide with a high of 14.6 at 5 to 2 this afternoon. Our overnight low was 5.7 degrees at 7:30 this morning. Sorry, but we don't have a weather photo tonight due to technical problems. At 7 o'clock, the temperature was 10.5 degrees. The barometric pressure was rising, the dew point was just 3.3 and the relative humidity was 82%. State maxima were near average and ranged from 11 degrees in Mount Crawford up to 20 in Moomba, Marla and Maree. It's like a tongue twister. Looking at our satellite photograph, we have some middle-level cloud out to the west, which has been responsible for some light shower activity. That's a weakening low-pressure system moving in a northeasterly direction. We may just pick up 1 or 2 showers out of that tomorrow, but there'll be few and far between. Certainly a bit of cloud around, and Sunday certainly looking the brighter of the 2 days for the weekend. Looking at the synoptic chart, we can see the dent in the isobars where that low pressure system is moving in a northeasterly direction, the high to the south, and that will dominate Sunday's weather. The prognostic chart shows the high moving a little bit further eastwards. Sunday the temperature will get up to about 15-16 degrees. Be quite a bright day up in the Barossa for the gourmet weekend. Cold front coming up from the southwest corner. That's now expected sometime around about lunchtime on Monday. With that we'll get some freshening winds and some showers over the southern settled areas. Looking interstate, there'll be showers tomorrow in Cairns and Sydney. It'll be fine and warm, 23 degrees in Perth tomorrow and fine in the other cities. Our state forecast, cloudy with isolated showers over the settled areas, clearing to the west tomorrow. Southeast to northeast winds will be light to moderate with seas of 1 metre. Expected maxima range from 13 degrees in Clare with an overnight low of 2 degrees, and it will be mild in Coober Pedy tomorrow with an expected top of 20 degrees. Overnight, there's a moderate risk of frost in all districts. On local waters, southeast to east winds at 7 to 12 knots with seas of less than 1 metre. Adelaide tomorrow looking fine and cool, down to about 5 tonight, top tomorrow of 15. Sunday's certainly bright, a bit more sunshine around the place, looking at a top of about 16 degrees. And then Monday and Tuesday, some showers in that southeasterly airstream behind the cold front and temperatures of about 15 degrees. Have a pleasant weekend. Back to you, Shane.
Thank you, Jane. Now recapping tonight's main stories. At the Reform Summit, South Australia continues to hold out against the federal plan for increasing competition. Competition is about to begin at the Commonwealth Games, following the official opening by the Queen in a colourful ceremony today. And as Adelaide experiences its driest winter runoff in 12 years, authorities have begun an around-the-clock pumping operation to boost supplies in Adelaide's shrinking reservoirs. That's the latest news, sport and weather. Indira and Xavier join Mark tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Now here's Lee and the 7:30 report.